Everyone tells you that if a man isn't calling or messaging, it's because he's not interested. You've heard it from friends, from dating advice videos, maybe even from your own mother. That's not just an oversimplification, it's a dangerous distortion. Male silence is far more intricate than that, and if you don't understand what it truly signals, you'll keep misreading every quiet moment, building stories in your head that tear at your peace. After years of guiding women through this exact confusion, women who've stared at their phones, wondering why he hasn't replied, I realized something chilling. The real problem isn't that you can't read the signs, it's that you've been taught to read them wrong since girlhood. You were told love should feel like constant pursuit, that if he really cares, he'll flood you with attention, that silence equals rejection. These myths have carved grooves into your mind so deep that now every pause feels like an ending, every day without a ping feels like abandonment. Today I want to shatter that old programming because a man's silence isn't some mystical void, it's a mirror. It reflects something about him, about the stage of life he's in, about what's occupying his mind. And when you learn to interpret that mirror without collapsing into self-doubt, you'll reclaim a power most women never realize they've lost. But let me ask you something, be honest. The last time he didn't message for 2 days, did you stay steady? Or did you feel that subtle pull to check your phone every hour, to scroll through old texts, to replay your last conversation and hunt for clues? Did you avoid spiraling into those what-ifs, or did your mind start crafting little dramas that left you restless? If your answer is anything less than a calm yes, then I need you to stay with me until the very end. Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Real stoicism isn't about going cold or pretending you don't care. It's about holding your center while the storm swirls around you. Imagine standing in the middle of a raging sea, the wind whipping at your hair, the waves crashing, but your footing, your breath, your gaze remains steady. That's the kind of inner stillness we're talking about. And yes, I'm going to be brutally honest here. Sometimes his silence is an unconscious test. He may not even realize he's doing it, but on some level he's observing how will you react when he pulls away. Will you chase? Will you crumble? Will you reveal that your mood, your day, your peace depend on his attention? Not all men do this with malice, but many do it because it works. And if you've ever found yourself sending those casual, hey, how are you messages, after a few days of nothing explaining why you didn't text, or justifying your own silence to fill the gap, then you've shown him exactly what he wanted to see, that you are emotionally tethered to his presence. That moment is when the balance of power shifts. That's when he knows you need him to feel okay. I've seen it happen to women who are brilliant, magnetic, and fiercely capable in every other part of their lives. Women who run companies, raise children alone, overcome storms most people couldn't even survive. Yet when a man goes silent, they shrink into a smaller, more insecure version of themselves. It's like all their victories suddenly mean nothing because their mind has latched on to the one unanswered message. Think about it. Have you ever caught yourself sending those harmless little check-ins? Hey, is everything okay? Or haven't heard from you in a while, just wanted to say hi. On the surface, they seem innocent, but underneath, they reveal something much deeper, that his absence shakes you enough to reach out even when you promised yourself you wouldn't. From a psychological perspective, this is where emotional dependency starts to show itself. In Jungian terms, it's the moment your shadow steps forward, the part of you that fears abandonment, that craves validation, that seeks reassurance more than truth. And men can sense this shift. They might not be able to articulate it, but they feel the energy change. They notice that your attention has moved from your own life onto theirs, that you are no longer in your center, you are orbiting around them. And the worst part, once that energy shift happens, it's almost impossible to hide. Your messages feel a little different. Your tone changes, the balance tips. Without even meaning to, you've taught him that his attention is the lever that moves your world. But here's the wake-up call: you don't have to play into that dynamic. In fact, the women who maintain their allure, their mystique, their quiet strength are the ones who understand this. Silence is not a command to chase. It's an opportunity to anchor deeper into yourself. The moment you stop seeing it as an emergency to fix you, step back into your own power. And that power, once you reclaim it, changes everything. Picture this: while he's silent, you're not curled up scrolling through old conversations or decoding the last emoji he sent. You're out living, meeting friends, finishing that project that's been sitting on your desk, losing yourself in something that lights you up. Your energy stays intact, your voice still carries warmth, your eyes still shine. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because your world didn't stop spinning when he pressed pause. Men feel this. The ones with emotional depth respect it. The ones who are testing you will notice the test failed, not because you scrambled to pass it, but because you never sat for it in the first place. And here's the subtle psychological truth people value, what they can't easily disrupt. When your peace isn't negotiable, your presence becomes priceless. Carl Jung believed that the way we respond to others reveals more about us than about them. His silence is just one of those mirrors. You could see emptiness in it, or you could see your own strength reflected back. Which one you choose determines everything. And here's the paradox most women miss: the less you react to the silence, the more powerful your presence becomes when he does return. Because sooner or later he will. And when he does, he's met with a woman who hasn't been waiting at the door, but one who's been building, growing, expanding. A woman with stories to tell, with new light in her eyes, with a life that feels too rich to abandon for a single person's attention. That's not just self-control, it's self-respect in action. And the more you live from that place, the more you'll realize something beautiful. His silence stops feeling like a threat. It becomes a space you can fill with everything that makes you feel alive. Now let's flip the lens completely, because sometimes his silence has nothing to do with you at all. It's not a punishment, it's not a hidden insult, and it's not a secret plan to make you squirm. Sometimes he's simply in his own world. Men have a way of compartmentalizing life that can feel almost alien to women. He can be deeply invested in a relationship and still put it on the shelf while he throws himself into work, tackles a personal goal, or deals with family matters. It's not that he's stopped caring, it's that his mind is wired to laser focus. Think of it like a tunnel. While he's in it, he can barely see anything outside. But here's where you can shift the entire dynamic. Instead of letting that gap drain, you use it. His silence is a perfect signal to turn back toward yourself. Ask yourself, when was the last time you were so engrossed in your own projects that you forgot to glance at your phone while he's in his world? Build yours. It's not about playing games or pretending to be busy. It's about genuinely pouring energy into the things that light you up, whether that's training for that 10K, planning your next adventure, or reconnecting with someone you've been meaning to call. Because here's the truth most people don't talk about. When your life is full and vivid, you stop waiting for someone to pull you out of emptiness. And the beauty of that, when he does resurface, he's walking back into a story that's been unfolding without him, a story rich enough that he'll either be inspired to add to it or quietly realize he can't keep up. But we also need to walk into the hardest truth of all. Sometimes his silence isn't a phase, a focus shift, or an emotional process. Sometimes it's just disinterest. Painful, yes. Liberating, even more so, because the sooner you accept this possibility, the sooner you stop feeding energy into an illusion. One of the most destructive traps I've seen women fall into is the attachment to potential, the dream of what he could be, rather than the reality of who he is right now. You start filling the silence with excuses. He's probably just stressed. Maybe he's planning a surprise, maybe he's giving me space. But here's the reality: if a man values you, he finds a way to make his presence felt. In Jungian terms, this clinging to possibility is the ego's way of protecting you from loss, because admitting that someone isn't showing up for you feels like failure. But in truth, it's not failure. It's information. It's the universe slipping you the answer key before you waste more time on the wrong exam. I've watched women spend months, even years, waiting for men who never came closer, investing hope in someone who was already halfway out the door. And the difference between the woman who suffers for years and the one who moves on quickly is simple. The second woman accepts what is, instead of obsessing over what might be. And here's the paradox: you think letting go will break you, but it's the clinging that drains your soul. When you release someone who clearly isn't choosing you, you create space for someone who will. You stop proving your worth to a closed door. You stop trading your joy for crumbs of attention. Sometimes silence is the purest form of honesty. And while it may not come wrapped in the closure you hoped for, it's still a gift. Because it shows you exactly where you stand, and once you know that, you can decide whether to keep standing there or walk toward a better horizon. Of course not. Every quiet spell is a coded message of disinterest. Sometimes silence is simply the way a man processes his own emotions or avoids them altogether. Many men were never taught to speak the language of feelings. They grew up in a culture where vulnerability was labeled weakness, where pain was meant to be swallowed, not shared. So when life hits hard, they don't open up. They retreat. It could be stress from work, a financial setback, a family conflict, or a private sense of inadequacy he can't put into words. Instead of reaching out, he disappears into himself. From the outside, it looks cold. From the inside, it's self-preservation. Jung would call this the shadow's retreat, the moment when a person hides the unpolished, uncertain parts of themselves to avoid judgment. But here's where many women make a costly mistake. They confuse empathy with unlimited tolerance. Yes, you can understand why someone goes silent. Yes, you can hold compassion for the weight they might be carrying, but compassion doesn't mean sacrificing your own emotional needs on the altar of their unspoken struggles. Your responsibility is not to fix what they won't name. Your responsibility is to decide if you can live with a pattern where communication shuts down under pressure. Can you accept stretches of quiet without feeling invisible, or do you need a partner who can meet you with words even when those words are imperfect? Because here's the truth: understanding someone's emotional limits doesn't mean you have to stay inside them. You can hold space for his process while still holding the boundary of your own peace. That's not coldness, it's self-respect. And in the long run, it's the only way to love someone without losing yourself in the silences they leave behind. This is where the magic begins, when you decide that his absence isn't an empty void, but a space you can fill with your own light. Instead of staring into the quiet, you start creating inside it. Think about the last time you felt truly alive. Was it when you finally booked that solo trip you'd been dreaming of, when you dusted off your old guitar and let your fingers remember the chords, when you met a friend for coffee and laughed so hard your stomach ached? Those moments didn't depend on a man's text, they were yours. His silence can be the perfect doorway back to those parts of yourself. Instead of checking your phone, you check your own pulse. What excites you? What have you been postponing? What would make you proud to say, "This is how I spent my time"? I've seen women use a man's withdrawal as the spark to completely transform their lives. One client opened her own bakery after years of thinking about it. Another went back to school. Another finally signed up for the salsa classes she'd been too self-conscious to try. They stopped pouring energy into waiting and started pouring it into living. And here's the subtle beauty of it: when you fill your life with experiences, passions, and people who make you feel whole, you stop needing anyone to rescue you from boredom or loneliness. You're already rich in your own world. From a psychological standpoint, this shift does something powerful. It recalibrates your energy. Instead of radiating, "I'm waiting," you radiate, "I'm living." And that energy is magnetic. When he comes back, he's not walking into the same space he left. He's meeting a woman who's expanded, who has more to give, not because she needs to win him, but because she's been winning at her own life. That's how you take silence and turn it into fuel. Not by filling it with fear, but by filling it with yourself. Here's the shift most women never see coming. When you stop waiting and start living, the energy between you and him changes instantly. Men can feel it even without a single word exchanged. There's a profound difference between a woman who needs a man's attention to feel whole and a woman who chooses to let him in because she's already whole. The first waits by the phone, rearranges her schedule, edits herself to stay likable. The second, she moves through life with a quiet confidence, knowing her worth is not up for negotiation. From a Jungian perspective, this is the moment you step out of the archetype of the seeker and into the archetype of the queen. You're not chasing the crown, you already wear it. And that shift, that rooted sense of self, is magnetic in a way no strategic dating advice can fake. Men are instinctively drawn to women who have a rich, full existence beyond them because that's the energy of freedom, not need. Freedom says, "I enjoy you, but I don't collapse without you." Need says, "I need you to feel like myself." One builds attraction, the other slowly erodes it. When he returns, and yes, most men do, at some point he won't find a woman sitting in the same emotional spot where he left her. He'll find someone with new stories, new laughter lines, new passions, and maybe even new boundaries. And that realization stirs something deep inside him, a recognition that he can't take her for granted. Here's the part that's often misunderstood. This isn't about playing games. You're not pretending to be busy. You're not manufacturing mystery. You're simply living your life so fully that his presence adds to your joy, but never defines it. That's what makes you unforgettable, not because you're hard to get, but because you're impossible to replace. So how do you actually hold on to this energy when the silence stretches longer than you'd like? The answer isn't to harden your heart. It's to deepen your roots. The women who stay magnetic through a man's quiet spells don't do it by pretending not to care. They do it by caring more about their own peace than about chasing his attention. They keep their days full of purpose, mornings that start with intention, afternoons spent on work they're proud of, evenings filled with connection, friends, family, hobbies that keep their soul fed. And here's the beautiful side effect: the same strength that stops you from spiraling over a missed call is the strength that will change your life in every other area. It's the same self-trust that makes you negotiate better at work, that helps you set boundaries with family, that inspires you to walk away from friendships that drain you. When you're rooted in your own worth, every relationship in your life starts to shift toward the healthy, the balanced, the reciprocal. From a psychological lens, you're building what's called internal regulation, the ability to stabilize your emotions without needing someone else to do it for you. Men respect it. Women admire it. And more importantly, you feel it. You start to notice that your confidence doesn't rise and fall with the sound of a text notification. The next time he doesn't reach out, try this pause before touching your phone. Ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? Maybe it's movement, go for a run. Maybe it's connection, call a friend who makes you laugh. Maybe it's creation, pick up a project you've been postponing. And then give yourself that. Because every time you choose your own nourishment over the need for his attention, you're telling your subconscious, I am my own source. And that belief will change the way you carry yourself in every room, every conversation, every love you ever have. And this brings us to the final, most defining truth. His silence is not the problem, your response to it is. It's the fork in the road that determines whether you crumble or bloom. Two women can face the exact same scenario. One spirals into self-doubt, rewrites the last conversation in her head 100 times, and starts bending herself into shapes she thinks will make him stay. The other feels the sting, takes a deep breath, and turns back to her own life with both hands on the wheel. Same silence, two different stories, and two completely different outcomes. From a deeper psychological perspective, this is the locus of control. Do you place your emotional stability in someone else's hands, or do you hold it in your own? The woman who blooms in solitude doesn't need to become cold or closed off to love. Quite the opposite, she loves from a place of fullness, not lack. She gives because she has plenty, not because she's hoping to get something back. And here's what's so powerful when you truly embody this. You don't have to tell a man you're secure. He feels it. Your energy says, I'm here because I choose to be, not because I can't live without you. That energy changes the way he sees you, and more importantly, it changes the way you see yourself. So the next time you're tempted to chase, remember this, you are not an option waiting to be chosen. You are a center of gravity in your own right. His silence might be a test, to distraction, or pure disinterest, but it's also an invitation to rise into the version of you that doesn't need to be validated to feel valuable, because in the end, the most unforgettable women aren't the ones who master the art of getting a man to stay. They're the ones who master the art of staying true to themselves, no matter who walks in or out. And when you live that truth, silence stops being a wound. It becomes proof that your life is too vast, too vibrant, and too valuable to be paused for anyone.